Josh,
I'm here.
all right. Okay. Pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call. Elizabeth is here. Next one. Josh is on the phone.
Joshua, here.
Okay, we'll see if Matt joins. All right, so next item is approval of the agenda. So we want to would like to add update from project manager and council liaison. And the other thing I thought we might need to discuss is the addendum for sustainability partners.
Okay,
So let's add that at the end.
we can discuss it, but that is already on the council agenda for next week.
Okay,
So it is moving forward in the interest of time without a vote here, so.
that's fine.
But you could maybe bring this, or do you want to do that?
We can't, I actually just got it from Rocky today, so I haven't fully digested it yet.
Okay.
I can give you a brief update, but we
Well, they'll
probably.
just include it in the update then.
Okay.
Okay,
And then we probably will not discuss the last, probably will not do the last two items, we'll table those.
and action items?
Yeah, we need to add action items.
Oh, okay, yeah, I already did, yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, so. Anybody want to do a motion to approve the amended agenda? Lori,
Okay, I second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Nope, okay. All right, next item is approval of the minutes, which we received today. I read through those, great job.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
make a motion to approve the. I'll make the motion to approve the minutes,
Last two meetings?
yes,
I second
okay,
it. All in favor?
aye, Josh, good, okay.
Aye.
All right, so on to new business, the first thing up there is the update from one or the
You
other.
want, go ahead.
I'm Chair, Council. Well, there's not much of an update on the status of the environmental
Okay,
assessment, they call that. Like I said earlier, our part, the contractors have got the report all finished, waiting for comments from the Department of Environment, and it's taking weeks, and they've done everything they can to try to hurry it up. I've asked them if they can accept the report without those comments, and they said no. They've also sent me a list of additional questions to answer. They're just questions about, what this means for the village, for schools. I sent this to our chief of law enforcement here and the fire chief, and they had some pretty good answers for them, and they seemed to be quiet after that, so I sent them that, and that was fine.
okay, what
Yeah,
about
waiting on that.
site plan?
Sorry.
What
The
about site
engineer
plan?
site plan.
Engineering, site plan,
The
update?
site plan is, it's coming along. The proposal that, depending on how many 3-bedroom units we choose, the site plan is gonna probably have to be altered. A couple things that I've learned since then is that, they spec'd out a lot, there's A and B sizes.
Yeah,
So some of the A sizes, which are small, they spec'd in about, I think there was about 12 of those A sizes on that site plan.
right,
And so, depending on how many 3 bedrooms we put in there, that's gonna have to change and, or be reduced. And the other thing that might affect that is that, as it turns out, the propane tanks, there was a consideration to maybe bury those. And if we bury those, we're gonna have to bury them on the, what do you call that? The
Setbacks.
setbacks.
okay,
And if they bury those in the setbacks, it could impact, the number of units, it could take away maybe 1 or 2 units,
okay,
depending on how many tanks, how big they are and all that.
Okay.
So that's what I know about the site plan.
so,
Really, what they're waiting for is, what are we gonna, how many 3 bedrooms, how many 2 bedrooms?
well, the last meeting, the question was, can you give us a proposal for ones? And so I sent something for people to look at. And that's what I was hoping that they had an opportunity to look at that. I know that we also had some comments from Lori on that, and we can discuss that next, but I don't know what else they would need from us other than just something like I put through the mail last week,
Well, I think they need the numbers,
which has the numbers on it.
know how many threes and how many twos.
It does have the numbers on it.
Okay, well.
It had, and maybe that wasn't clear, so,
That might have not been clear.
okay,
I thought that's what we were gonna determine tonight.
okay.
Um.
Well, yeah,
that-
we'll have to look, I mean, this was a proposal to see if this would work, and then we would kind of vote on, but that's fine, we can figure it out.
Yeah,
Okay,
they did mention that there'd be some alterations based on those numbers,
okay,
but they haven't come back with a new one.
okay, all
Um,
right.
Are we gonna update them on
The addendum?
Yeah.
So we can, so we've gotten the addendum back. I had a phone call with Ryan Matz today, actually.
Okay.
He called me while I was traveling back and forth to Dallas, and so I didn't get a chance to call him back until this afternoon. Basically, Sustainability Partners, has gotten us the addendum that Clerk Strickland needed last night, I think was kind of the holdup to make sure it makes next Tuesday's council agenda. Just to remind you guys what that is, we are already under contract with Sustainability Partners to do the water meter project. This addendum expands the scope of their contract. And so what Ryan told me is it took them essentially every day from the last time we all met in this room to last night to really get that done. Rocky and when I came in today was looking through the addendum that's now prepared to go before council for a vote. And I would say those numbers look very favorable. Is that-
They look real good.
is that a favor? So what we're talking about is we're bottom lining this to a total number to the Village of Angel Fire per month, okay? Now that is based on 33 bedrooms. The reason they did that is it's the most expensive option. And so when you're putting a scope like this together, you don't wanna underscope it and then come back and have to do a revised addendum to this. So, I don't really wanna speak to those numbers just yet because
Okay.
basically where I got to with Ryan is we're going to have a meeting or 5 probably with them to go through who's got what responsibilities in this scope,
Okay,
who's responsible for X, who's responsible for Y, so that we don't get to the end of this and figure out, oh no, we have rents that are here, but we missed $500 a month of stuff that now has to be accounted for. So that's the only reason I don't want to share them with you. I'm very encouraged by what they are. I think you guys will be too, but I don't think they're quite ready for public consumption yet.
okay,
There's gonna be some go through with me, with Rocky, with all the council members. Ryan is preparing to make that as a full presentation to council that next week. The only reason we're doing that is the interest of time. It's not that we wouldn't trust you guys to do it or you guys wouldn't have input here, but we have got to get several significant steps done by the end of April if we're going to get contracts, orders, and installations done this year.
Sure.
So some of what we're doing here, if we had another year to do it, yeah, we would probably bring it before you, let you guys review it, but this is a fairly, you have to think of this as more as a financial document than a construction document, because that's what it is. So where we are today is Ryan's going to present that at next Tuesday's council meeting. I
which is
think
at what time?
5:30. My understanding, and Clerk Strickland can remind me, I think Sustainability Partners is actually item M on that agenda. We're gonna have a bit of a marathon council meeting next week. We have many items, several public hearing items. So he will be here in person to present that. What he's asked for, and I've subsequently set up with Manager Weir, is a work session that is likely going to happen on the 22nd prior to the council meeting then. Before that council meeting happens, and Rocky may not know this yet, but Rocky, myself, Director Epler, and likely the engineer, Dennis Engineering, and the manager, we are all gonna have a meeting next either Tuesday or Wednesday, Monday or Wednesday, depending upon everyone's availability. And what we're basically going to do is start spending all of this money on paper. So Rocky and I had to put together a estimated budget for this process during the grant writing. All of those things were done as a linear per square foot, and they are all kind of in the ballpark, but they're budget numbers. We have got buy-in from Director Epler that we are going to self-perform as much of the site work, the digging, the pipe installation as possible. He has already dug into, it will be cheaper for us to do
say, in the case of the back road, it will be cheaper to do that back road in curb and gutter versus doing excess engineered fill. It will be cheaper for us to go in and do a pressurized sewer system with grinders at each unit versus having to put a 20-foot manhole at 434, because that's what the specifications and the slope of the lot would require. So what we're about to engage in over the next 2 weeks is we are going to spend every dime of this grant money on paper and figure out how much of that is gonna be done via self-performed work. We had a meeting, recently, what's Raul's name? Hurtado. There's gonna be some equipment that we don't own, but that the grant will allow us to lease. And we're also exploring the options that many of those leases can be leased to purchase. So there are about 1 million different things that we're trying to work on in the background to get this done. Where I think this goes for this committee is between now and the work session on the 22nd, that's gonna be council's first actual opportunity to see the budget, not from me or not from you, but from the people who are actually gonna be doing the work, what will self-perform and what will have to bid out. So I think what's gonna happen here is after next week's meeting with Tappan, I think what you're looking for in the site plan is gonna be much, much clearer, that we're gonna give him the direction of, we want 30 units, we have to have 20 units, but we also want the propane tanks buried, we want the curb and gutter, we want those things. I would estimate that that site plan is probably 60 or 70% of completion. It's not done yet. And I think after next week's meeting, we will be able to come back to you guys with a 90 to 95% site plan with actual counts of units. To Rocky's point, we may lose a unit or two in the burying of the tanks and other things. So my educated guess on this is we're gonna come out with somewhere between 25 and 30 units. I would guess that we're gonna have between 20 and 25 3-bedrooms and between 5 and 10 2-bedrooms. Now, that's about as specific as I'm gonna be able to get with the engineer, because once we tell the engineer, here's the other parameters we have to meet, we're gonna ask him to come back and say, okay, based on here's where the tanks have to go and here's everything else, let him tell us, okay, here's what will fit. So, I know
think that's what we need.
it is what we need.
And we have I have the perimeter numbers on here for the, so all of the ones that he sent, all the models that he sent are fine. They are just different sizes. Some are 72 long, some are 80 long, some are 69, some are 59.
18 might be different,
Yeah, and so that's why I kind of did that mix, because I thought there might be some spots where we can only do the 59 and others, 80, but if we have to do all 72, well, that's fine too, although I didn't put any 72s on there. But in other words, that what I had laid out came up with like 7 2-bedrooms and 23 3-bedrooms. And so, yeah, I'm okay with whatever mix we think makes sense. What, if we can fit more by doing a few more 2-bedrooms,
Right.
we should, because I think there'll be people there. Even though the difference per month might only be $100, I think we should still try to fit the maximum number of units in there. And Ryan needs to tell us, I think that was on our agenda last time, we need to know if the dormer requires any additional, perimeters, not perimeter for the unit itself, but perimeter for the space in between you want,
Right,
I can't
right.
imagine it requiring a whole lot more.
Not a lot, and we did get, I haven't seen it yet, but my understanding is as part of this addendum, we also have the detailed foundation specifications in there.
Okay.
So those are also gonna be going to the engineer.
Okay,
So there's a lot more details that I think we were hoping to have today that we didn't have, that we
Right.
have now. So, now there's one other wrinkle here. One of Ryan's questions to me today is something that we have put off. And that it was starting to trend into the governance, side of things.
okay,
Particularly, so keep in mind, what Sustainability Partners is doing is they go to private investors and create these funds for us to essentially to use, but their investors have questions of him. Okay, what am I investing in?
right.
What
They
are
have
the
to create
risks?
the package for the investors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of their questions is, how are these gonna be managed? Property manager, on-site person, those
Right,
types of things.
Right,
So in my conversation with Manager Weir today, I let him know that that's a question that his investors are asking him. So I've asked him to go back to the attorney, Because if you remember, we have that governance document's been sitting at the attorney forever, and it's one of, I think, 9 things that our attorney currently has in review.
Mhm.
So I've told him, I said, that needs to move up the priority list a little bit, because before we can get this done with Ryan, we're gonna need an answer to that question.
Mhm.
My impression is, I think long-term, we would prefer to have a full-time person who lived on site, be the main point of contact, but that person doesn't exist yet.
Mhm.
So we're gonna have to at least come up with what our plausible answers to sustainability partners, investors would be, probably within the next 30 days.
Mhm.
So in the interest of doing that, rather than passing it to you and then having a meeting and back and forth, we're gonna have to back and forth this with the attorney. And eventually that document will come back around to you guys for approval, but I think we're gonna have to get at least a reasonable answer for sustainability partners sooner rather than later. So I think where we are right now is,
Are you talking about property manager for the maintenance side or property manager for the financial side?
for the maintenance side.
Okay.
For the maintenance side.
Because the financial side, we've talked about reviewing, putting out an RFP and all that.
Correct. So this would be for the maintenance side. The other question in there, and I haven't had this conversation with Director Epler, but we have apparently done quite well. We have, I think it's 2 people in the village maintenance department right now that weren't here 2 years ago. We have a full staff of maintenance people now that didn't exist when we first put that governance document together. So are we gonna be able to utilize village maintenance staff for, hey, somebody knocked a hole in a wall or somebody pulled a cabinet door off? Can we fix those things? Or do we have to route that through sustainability partners, get a bid for it, have a contractor come over from Taos or wherever they are? So some of those questions that we were hoping to back burner are coming back forward. So where I think we are with this committee is it's time for us to take a little bit of a breather. You guys have done great work in getting us to where we are now, but we're gonna vote on this addendum to their contract next week. That allows sustainability partners to keep their paperwork going and to continue all of their contract work with Clayton Homes. Because we have voted on Clayton Homes, that will go to council as well for their approval. Clayton Homes is in the addendum. All of the information and numbers in there are Clayton Homes. So I think after next week's meetings, we will have the addenda approved. Rocky, the engineer, and Director Epler will have all of their go for it items with a deadline of the 22nd. So the 22nd will be when this goes to council at that 80 to 90% approval rate, okay? Now, I don't think we're gonna be picking colors between now and the 22nd. That's not where we are yet. That's not necessary.
Right.
To give you an estimate on that, Ryan, the sustainability told me today that the facility that Clayton will build these out of the type that we're looking at, can build 6 to 8 of these structures a day.
Okay.
So they are not going to be the slowdown. We're not as worried about the ability for them to build and deliver. The concern now is for us to get the engineering work done so that we can get the site work that we're doing in-house on the schedule. So you guys may not know this, but there is one project ahead of us with Public Works, and it's Allen Fields, the lighting and utilities that are going out there. That's gonna be their April and May project for actually shovels in the ground. We're hoping that Workforce Housing is gonna be their May and June project. Now, some of that will depend on our ability to get the environmental studies completed in time for that, because we cannot put a shovel in the ground until that's all done. So I would hold off on the mix, because I think when I come back to you at the next meeting after the 22nd, we're gonna have a site plan that we're able to do RFPs on, to start ordering pipes, to start ordering all the sewer and water components we need, and that will be the appropriate time to decide on a mix, because it is gonna be what it is. The other part of it is, and I'm not saying this is the case, but one of the investors, the sustainability partners may say, I don't have the comfort level of investing in this with a full-time employee managing it that doesn't exist yet. I'm gonna demand a project manager. So sustainability partners may force our hand on some things on the governance side. So rather than us spending the next 3 weeks having regular meetings and beating around what we think is gonna happen, I think for now, this committee kind of pumps the brakes for a couple of weeks. We've been working you guys pretty hard for the last couple of months. And we let Rocky and myself and Kurt and the manager get with the engineer and do a lot of this fine detailing work that is going to influence the decisions going forward.
Mhm. Okay.
So,
So, like, one comment I have is, in terms of the site plan, you know, I've built it out with multiple of those units because I didn't want everything to look exactly
Right.
the same. But Lori's asked a question about, but I thought we were gonna get a better deal if we just get all the same unit or whatever. So what did Ryan say to that? Did he have a?
at this scale and with Clayton, it won't make a difference. It
So if
would
we
be-
wanna do, especially if we wanna do four
Some-
different models, and I thought if we do the 4 different models, it might give us some different options on floor plans, and it might look a little different on the outside, I don't know.
I'm sorry, let me clarify that. Doing a mix of 3s and 2s won't matter.
Okay,
Doing the same 3-bedroom floor plans and the same 2-bedroom floor plans will impact it, but it is a marginal difference.
okay,
It is not a huge difference here. And
okay.
based on the preliminary rents we're seeing, that looks good. But to be honest, the preliminary rents were low enough to make me nervous
Mhm.
that something's not in those, and that's why I've asked for Manager Weir, like, we've got to sit down and put everything budgetary wise on paper to make sure we didn't miss something in here that's now, oh, great, we think we have a deal, and whoops, we forgot something
Okay.
major. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I don't have those plans in front of me, but, just, I think
I haven't there.
I'm gonna say, just the one that was, I don't remember what the difference between Voyager and Mariner, but I'm just saying, if you need to influence what it is, we might just take a look at them and see if we have a preference over one or the other, if they're fitting them in. Because, I mean, I like the ones that have the 2 sinks in the bathrooms.
Those are nice. I will say, thinking about having families in the 3 bedrooms, I liked the Voyager because it looks like it's got the breakfast burning, and these might be details that we can change out.
well, I will tell you, the Voyager seems to be Sustainability Partners' preferred model as well.
Oh, yeah.
Just based on their review, that seems
Yeah.
to be the one that I think that's the one that's in the addendum is the Voyager.
Yeah.
So-
Versus
so
the,
Oh,
versus
really?
the, I prefer the other one, I
I
prefer the Mariner.
Really?
Yeah, but,
Interesting.
but either one,
Now, that may be based on something I don't know. It may be that Clayton builds 10-to-1 Voyagers to Mariners. You know what I mean? Like, there may be some inside manufacturing baseball that they know about that we don't know about.
well, the good thing about the Voyager is it does have a walk-in closet and it does have an actual washer and dryers in a room by itself versus just out open. So that is kind of nice.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
the bedrooms are real small.
Yeah, what's this one's? These are, yeah, that's true. The Mariner bedrooms are a little bit bigger.
Biggest difference,
The bedrooms are much better.
well, I think in the Mariner gives you a little more, I just like how the living space is laid out a little bit more for a family, but, the
Right.
Voyager's got.
Yeah, I mean,
The
I would
bathroom
prefer
space.
the Mariner, but if we wanted to do a mix or whatever,
Yeah.
if they look any different on the outside, that then makes it look less,
Right.
that would be nice.
So this is something we can come back to and say,
Right.
okay,
We can.
we
Yeah.
can select.
We
two
can,
preferred floor
but-
plans.
Good, bad, or indifferent, we are going to do this project with Sustainability Partners,
Right,
and we have to kind of shift focus a little bit
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
the questions that are at the top of their list are different potentially than the questions at the top of your list. That doesn't make your questions less important. It just means we're gonna have to do this in a slightly different order. So I would, if I were you, plan on postponing a future meeting until somewhat closer to the 22nd, and it may be after the 22nd. A lot of that is gonna depend on how the next week and a half goes, what response we get from the engineer, how quickly we're able to get a response from them that Public Works can actually start putting numbers to. Because, again, I won't go into it, but the numbers that the finance director and manager Weir and Rocky were just looking at, they were very impressive.
okay.
And I think will it give us a couple of weeks' time to figure out, oopsie, did we miss something? And let's work with the engineer to find out what details have we missed and get a count that's based on his expertise. If we've got to modify it, fine, but the propane tanks are gonna have to be buried. That was a meeting I had with the
I
mayor.
like that.
We basically, if you remember the big townhome project that they did, the 11,
Yeah, that
Um,
was, yeah.
So what is the benefit besides aesthetics?
the benefit besides aesthetics, well, safety first.
Okay.
And standoff. When you have an above ground propane tank, state code requires it certain distances from structures. And so it will necessarily, if you have them above ground, shift everything else above ground around.
Well, and there is some insulation factor to having them below.
There is, so we basically,
Just asking.
no, that's fine. So we basically took the mayor's 11 townhome projects, which when you add them all up, square footage wise, are pretty close to what our 30 square foots would be.
Mhm.
So we're asking the engineer for the same 3,000 gallons of buried propane tanks. They'll likely be in 3 separate tanks, individually piped and metered to each unit. So,
One
I
thing
think
I
that was
would
another
say,
enhancement that the buried tanks offered was an easier way to meter.
right,
Yeah.
so like when they're coming to fill them, they only have 3 tanks to fill and all the meters are ganged right there. So they fill all 3 tanks and they read all the meters and they don't have to go to each individual unit.
Right.
There's a ganged set of meters right there by the tanks.
so one thing I would say for sure to the engineer, I'm sure they will think of this, but wherever that is, please don't put the hubs by where people park.
Yes.
Because we have had a bobcat or somebody was out working at our yard and just ran into
Yeah,
the thing in
the fill spots.
Yeah, well, they just ran into the little cover.
Yeah,
And then that caused the safety valve to go and we lost $800 worth of propane.
right,
So,
right.
and it was dangerous because it was just big, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we just immediately, Kevin came in and blew out all the pilot lights and then we left.
Right.
So, but anyway, and that was just an accidental, and so as long as they're not in anybody's way to be able to accidentally run into them, that would be
Yeah.
important to me.
Sure. So that's, any other, hopefully I answered your propane tank question.
Yeah,
But that's a detail that the engineer's got to do because there's all the specifications about how you bury propane tanks. And then once he has them in there, he has to be careful where they are, where the parking is, where the structures are in relation to that. So I think it would be premature for us to try to pick a unit number or mix based on what is a very preliminary site plan. Let's get it a little more detailed out. And then we'll come back around with, okay, here's what the engineers laid out. And I think what will happen is you will likely then not be given a, what do you guys want? You'll probably be given a couple of different options that we could do. And then you guys will be able to make a vote based on that recommendation.
So in terms of like delaying meetings or whatever, if at some point one of you feel like we need a meeting, like I said, I'm out until really after Mother's Day. So
I'm
Josh
sorry,
is our
when is Mother's Day? What's that date?
May 15th.
Okay,
So if we need a meeting before then Josh is your
okay,
vice chair. Get with him and get that, and Megan.
Yeah.
And those are the two that can kind of get it scheduled, and I may be able to call in on something after April 30th, but
and I
count on it.
I think that's probably okay, because what we're basically doing is picking this up and saying, okay, we have professionals that we're paying to help us with this site plan.
Sure.
We need to go work that process a little harder before we work you guys over for more time.
But if you
And
need the vote like on the number of units or something like that, I mean, I don't
Well-
want to be involved.
yes and no. So we are having the vote on Tuesday for the contract addendum.
Okay,
That contract addendum has 30 units with 3-bedroom, 2-bath, which is the maximum spend, shall not exceed.
okay,
Voting on that allows sustainability partners in the background to start scoping this with Clayton to get the contracts that they need in place, to work on contracts that we'll have to sign with sustainability partners, so that when we come back, we have a lot more of that in order, and we will be down to the choices that make sense given the context of the
Right,
project, right? How many units will fit now with all the constraints, what colors we want. And I do think, while mathematically the right answer would still be to do all 3-bedroom, 2-bath, every conversation I've had around that is, we've got to do some number of 2 bedrooms on this, it just wouldn't make sense otherwise. And then figure out, the other thing is price point wise, the numbers that we're seeing are good enough, we may consider some of the other things that we may be able to reach a little further into the wish list right now based on numbers. But in 2 more weeks, I may come back and be like, okay, we missed these things and now the wish list is a little shorter.
yeah.
Right. So rather than having you guys detail it all out and then it change for reasons that we didn't anticipate, let's save the time, let's save the scope, so.
Well-
I did look at, if you took the Mariner 3-bedroom, they do have a 2-bedroom format for the same. So you could order all one size,
Right, And there were some others that we looked at that weren't included in the scope, like there's a 2-bedroom that Clayton makes that actually is front entry instead of side.
Yeah.
And Ryan really, really likes it.
I like those too, as long as it's not front, as long as it's front entry into like a living area or something like that.
It is, but it is a substantial step up in price.
Oh, well,
And so now we're back to okay, delivery and price are, very high on the list of things to want. And so that's why he didn't include it, because compared to the 2-bedroom that he did include, it was not competitive.
okay.
So he's doing some of that sorting work for us.
Okay, that's fine.
So hopefully I've answered your questions. I appreciate all the time you guys have put in on this. Give us a couple of weeks to get you guys some better answers. And then we'll decide if, before the session on the 22nd or not, or Mother's Day or not. I think timing wise, that's gonna be fine, because I suspect what's gonna happen is we're gonna basically, the concern now is not the Clayton side or this committee's side, it's getting Public Works what they need to figure out, can they do this project timing wise? We know they can do it, but what the timing is, because Sustainability Partners' biggest concern at this point is that we green light, and then we have units that show up here on site and the site's not ready.
Right, no, we don't want
Because
that.
we don't want that, so
But
that's
gonna be a heavily coordinated effort.
correct,
Because it's gonna be 5 to 8 to 10 units at a time.
right?
Right.
Where are those units gonna go?
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
and
Okay.
Kurt's group's gotta
Gotta
be
figure
prepared
that
for that.
out, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the other thing too is like, if, in terms of the investors, if they need. I mean, I don't know, you're just talking about the maintenance purchase, but if there's any other thing that we need that is part of our governance. That we need to decide on, we probably need to know if that's gonna hold anything up as well.
Correct, and so Sustainability Partners is actually working on a policy, basically their own governance document. And we're gonna end up comparing theirs and ours, and then figuring out whose responsibilities are what. And do they sign ours, do we sign theirs, do we sign both? So there's a lot of questions on how that's gonna go, and several of those things will come back before the committee. But again, in the interest of time, if we were doing this on a 3-year horizon, we would say, okay, great, well, let's wait until we have it back from
Yeah,
legal and then review,
But
but
that's not. the
that's,
right, but
Right.
our governance is more around. Who can live in the apartment?
Correct.
And their governance sounds more like, how are they gonna be maintained and who has a
Exactly.
responsibility for that?
that's exactly
So I
right.
think it's a complementary governance
I agree.
versus a replacement governance, so.
Yes,
Okay,
One other little wrinkle, if you don't mind.
No, please.
That I forgot to mention
okay,
was the other end of the spectrum, and that's the affordability of the workforce housing.
okay,
The AMI situation that I talked about. So I went to the United States, there's a conference that was in Dallas. And I got to speak to a kind of a high-end HUD representative. And so he suggested that rather than asking for 80% AMI for all of our homes, is to ask for a mix. And he said that has been more favorable than just asking for 80%.
oh, okay,
So he was willing to push the envelope for us on that. And so he took some information of who I've been dealing with here in our HUD.
okay,
And he was going to try to push that envelope and try to get us a workable mix so that we could, because maybe the 1-bedrooms are, I mean, if you did a 1-bedroom. But for one person in a home, that would work, but maybe for the 2 and 3 and 4 people in the homes, we would need a higher, percentage there.
okay, well,
And
that'd be
so
good.
that was a good thing, and it was a common, question that a lot of people had, having to deal with that
Okay,
in building and workforce housing, so.
that's
Anyway,
good, that's a good
Maybe
idea.
some little head roads in there, hopefully it'll be in our favor.
I'm glad you attended, I wish I could have gone, but,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was good.
well, the agenda item that was pricing and options, Ryan, quite frankly, he said, I don't have that done. It was every minute they could spare to get the addendum for council meetings. That is something we're gonna have to go through at some point, but unfortunately, the other paperwork needed to be first.
Sure.
So
Okay,
you guys will get a shot at that, just not today, unfortunately.
Getting that addendum approved on the council is gonna be huge.
It
right,
is,
right,
That's really gonna get you going.
right.
all right, very well. So anything else on the agenda that we need to address, and then
Well,
we tabled the other two?
Yeah, we tabled the other two,
So
so,
the action
and
items-
action items,
Or just,
we're gonna hold off until.
right,
Yeah, I would wait until you hear from myself or Rocky, and I would plan on a meeting somewhere between the
20th of April and the 20th of May. But that's gonna really depend on how much work we're able to accomplish in the next 10 days or so.
Yeah.
And then Josh, just kind of be on the lookout. I mean, somebody will have to
Yeah.
just make sure if you need that meeting before. I'll probably watch email, but I won't be available to do calls or anything like that, so.
And feel free, email questions. It's not like we're trying to cut you guys out of the loop, but some of these things, we've just got to get to council faster so we can keep the ball moving forward.
Sure.
So,
It'll help on your decision making too, with
Yeah,
those answers and get those
yeah, if it's
answers.
something that we
It'll be
don't
real
really
clear.
need to be in the weeds on, it's fine with me.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And then we can have concrete options once we come to consider the question,
Exactly.
instead of coming here and talking through stuff for an hour.
Well, and that's the problem is we almost have too many choices at this point.
Right, right.
So many models, so many options, so many floor plans, so many colors. It's,
Right.
And we're not sure of the impacts. One
Right.
way or another.
Right, I can draw a lot of stuff on a piece of paper,
Sure.
whether it fits or not.
Right.
We don't know, so,
Right.
okay, all right, well, sounds good. So if there's nothing else, then we'll adjourn the meeting then.
Okay.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.